Hello everyone, we are back with episode 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 of The Mixer with Steven Dumeng, yours truly, one of the newest and up-and-coming MMA analysts in the house. We're here in New York City, still the only place where MMA is not legal, but more on that in a little bit. But we're here with episode 4, brought to you by, well, not really brought to you by Vegas Fuel, but Vegas Fuel is delicious, so drink it. That one was for AJ Pan. That one's for you, buddy. And my boy, Jordan Calzone. Cheers, guys. Delicious. Like I said, check it out. In any case, we're here to talk some MMA, which is, obviously, as you guys are watching at home, no, it's the best sport out there right now. Honestly, combat sports are where it's at, and MMA always delivering on excitement, especially the last few weeks with the UFC doing quite a few different events. We started, last time we were on the show, we were talking about UFC 171, so it's a bit of chronicling to do here. There's a few events that we can go over, and we'll get right into it. Episode 4 of The Mixer with Steven Dumeng, talking UFC right now. As you know, I got my little UFC shirt on. Quick side story, this UFC shirt actually brought to you by UFC themselves. I actually won this from UFC Fantasy at UFC.com. UFC used to have a fantasy website, which I miss to death, and unfortunately is no longer there, and it breaks my heart every time, but I won a lot of awesome stuff from them. It was actually at UFC, what was it? I think it was Franklin versus Okami, where I ranked number 7 on in the world of their little predictions. And so far so good, by the way. My predictions have been kicking butt. And UFC gave me a shirt, mouse pad, octagon mouse pad, a couple other little gifts. It was awesome, and I thank Dana for that. Please bring back UFC Fantasy. It was awesome. And if you guys out there know some good fantasy MMA sites that I can join, or if you need a teammate, let me know. You know where to go, and you know where to find me. Steven Dumeng in the house. But in any case, we're looking at UFC past events. Henderson coming through and knocking out Shogun in another memorable, unforgettable fight. Wow. I don't even know where to start with that fight. That was insane. Living up to the hype and the demand of the first fight. The first fight was another fantastic fight. That was 5 rounds. This one was 3. But wow, I gotta say, Henderson coming with a massive comeback win, dropping the H-bomb and subsequently breaking poor Shogun's nose. Wow, let me tell you, that was not the most technical fight, like I had said, and I thought Henderson actually would have eked out another decision, but I gotta say, 2 true warriors, 2 future Hall of Famers, exceptional fighters, all the respect in the world. That was an insane fight, and Shogun, honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you, that fight could have been stopped early on, honestly. Henderson was getting blasted, and, that tells you a lot of the heart of Dan Henderson, who even in his 40s is still kicking butt, taking names, and actually lined himself up a fight with Daniel Cormier, who's another up-and-comer, as we know, looking to end his streak of undefeated wins. Will be Dan Henderson at light heavyweight, and it should be insane. Honestly, I've already been reading online, Sherdog, MMA Mania, a lot of people discounting Dan Henderson. But you know what? I gotta say, you heard it here on the record. I'm going with Henderson on that fight. I swear, Henderson admittedly looked pretty bad in that fight. I mean, last we saw Cormier, he was taken out of can in about a minute or so. It was the barista guy. But he still got his finish, and aside from that fight, his UFC tenure has been pretty not so exciting. So it's been very, poor. Honestly, his wins over Nelson and Mir at heavyweight didn't really do much for me, or I think anyone for that matter. And honestly, this is going to be a really big fight. Dan, I still believe, is a tough test, regardless of the Shogun performance. I think he still did what he had to do. Don't get me wrong, he got tagged a lot, but it happens. He came through, he got the comeback win, and that fight was epic. Please watch it. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor. As an MMA fan, watch it. It was phenomenal. Speaking of other events, we had 2 other future Hall of Famers. Say what you will. I think Roy Nelson will be a future Hall of Famer. A lot of people don't like him, but he will. And, of course, we had Big Nog getting, absolutely destroyed. That was top top 5, one of the most painful things to watch, I swear. Seeing Roy Nelson absolutely destroy, that was one of the most one-sided fights I've seen in quite some time. Wow. Poor Big Nog, he's suffering his first back-to-back losses in MMA. Almost at his, I believe he's up to almost his 50th fight in MMA. It's time to call it a career. That was a savage knockout. He was out cold before he even landed on the ground. We saw Big Country land his patent overhand right. That was a bomb. And he continues to keep his streak alive. And actually, when I mean streak, I mean he's one of the few heavyweights currently to have nothing but finishes. All of his wins have come by finish, actually all by knockout. And wow, brutal. Big Country, he's asking for a title fight. He's 37 as well. Big Nog's also 37. I don't see it ever happening. I think Roy is a very, very, very tough guy, but we've seen how he handles top 10 and or close to top 10 fighters, and it's not pretty. Verdum, Junior Dos Santos, even Frank Mir, his last loss to Stipe Miocic, brutal beatdowns. He didn't get finished, but those were some savage, especially the Verdum loss, savage beatdowns that we saw with poor Roy Nelson there. But in any case, he rebounds, he destroys Big Nog. Unfortunately, I remember reading it. It was so crushing to see that. Oh my gosh. That was honestly, we're talking wrestling real quick, that was like seeing Taker get taken out. Obviously, it's in a different context. Props to Brock Lesnar, by the way. But seeing Big Nog get laid out like that was unbearable to watch, honestly. Crushing loss. And honestly, he wants to fight Frank Mir again. I mean, he already lost him twice. He got submitted by him, and he also got knocked out by him. No one wants to see that. Big Nog's the man. He's coming off 2 brutal losses to Verdum and Roy Nelson. I think it's time. He's done more than enough. There's nothing to prove. Big Nog's a legend of the sport, and I think it's time. Unfortunately, it's about that time. It does. I wish he retired with the Schaub knockout that he had done in Brazil. Unfortunately, he did not. So we'll see Roy Nelson again. Probably, there's not very many heavyweights out there. The heavyweight division's kind of thin in comparison to the other divisions in the UFC. We'll see Roy Nelson hopefully build a streak. I don't see him getting a title shot anytime soon, but it'll be pretty good. Speaking of other recent UFC events, we also crowned 2 new Ultimate Fighter winners. We're up to our, I believe, 32nd, 33rd winners of the show. The show's been going since 2005. We're almost at 2015, 10 years of The Ultimate Fighter. And it's very boring. I didn't watch it. It was hosted by Pat Cote and Cal Noak, who also fought on that fight card at the Tough Nations finale. And it was, the event itself was kind of boring. We saw Tim Kennedy, who I'm not really a fan of. He's just very bland, and I obviously respect everything he's done in terms of the military background and whatnot. But as a fighter, I always found Kennedy extremely boring. He squeezed out the decision over Michael Bisping, who is a fairly exciting fighter. Say what you will about Bisping. He's a good fighter, but honestly, it didn't do much to shake up the middleweight division. I think Tim Kennedy still has a lot to prove. Bisping is a tough test, but we'll see Bisping rebound. And Tim Kennedy, again, I'm still not sold on him. I think guys in the middleweight division, the upper echelon, will easily handle him, in my opinion. And we crowned, like I said, 2 other tough winners, LaPriest and Thodoro. 2 other guys I don't really know much about. Their fights were on that night. They were good, I guess. Again, I'm being sarcastic. I didn't really care for it. But in any case, we have more tough winners. Another tough season in the bag. Pat Cote actually took a decision from the rival coach, Cal Noak, and it was very forgettable. So was that season of The Ultimate Fighter. So Dana, if we can please calm down the amount of Ultimate Fighter seasons, because that led into another Ultimate Fighter season up to like Tough 19, and then there's the other toughs. There's too much tough going on. Too many tough guys. Gosh, we don't need that much. It's cool. Let's bring it down a notch. Let's, it's not. I like BJ Penn, but I'm not going to tune in. I can care less, really. Honestly, the last season of Tough I really genuinely watched was The Ultimate Fighter 10, which was the heavyweights, which was a fun season to watch. But in any case, the show's gone downhill. I don't really care for it. Thankfully, it's on Fight Pass. I know there's still the Vanderlei Silva Sonnen season that I don't really care for. No, they just need to kill the show, in my opinion. There's no need for it. We don't need any more Ultimate Fighters. Like I said, it's gonna get to a point where we have 50 winners of the show. It's not even cool anymore. You're gonna end up like Kendall Grove, getting destroyed in Bellator by that's rough. That's a season 3 winner, and where is he now? Getting knocked out in Bellator. Damn shame. But in any case, speaking of Bellator, we'll be jumping that into 2 seconds, but I just have to get more of my 2 cents in. Fight Pass. This show started a couple months ago. It's been like 2 months. Fight Pass is still, and I repeat, still not available on game consoles. Why, Dana? Come on, man. Come on. Work on that. I'm, as always begging. I do a lot of begging. Please, make it happen. I don't know what to tell you. I would love to watch Fight Pass, but it sucks still. And, just make it better. That's all. Not much to ask for. Make it better. I want to watch it on my PS4. Please, make it happen. I'll give you the $10. I'll give you 15 if you want. But in any case, I'm not paying for that crap for now. It sucks. Hopefully, I'll be eating my words very soon, but as of late, Fight Pass thankfully does not have my credit card information. Moving on to Bellator, we had a few events from Bellator. We saw heavyweights in action. The reigning champion, Minakov, took a decision from Congo, who unfortunately fails to get a heavyweight title in any of the major promotions, at least in Bellator and UFC. And he came up short, unfortunately, and I like Congo. I always was a fan of his, even if he's become more dull these days. But regardless, he came up short. There was some other events that came up, Bellator 116, which was a very good fight card. On paper, probably not really what people expected, but we saw a lot of returns and a lot of big finishes, if you will. We saw Mighty Mo, speaking of Big Nog retiring, I think there's a seat next to him with Mighty Mo's name on it, getting absolutely... I thought, the Roy Nelson loss was pretty huge that Big Nog suffered, but wow, that head kick was vicious. Like, let me tell you, Volkov, who is a former Bellator champion, brutally executing a head kick. Lovely combo in the first round, laying out Mighty Mo. Vicious head kick. And hopefully setting himself up for a rematch with the current Bellator heavyweight champion. Also, we saw Blagoy, I believe his name is Blagoy Ivanov. There's a lot of Novs, in Russia. Well, that sounded bad. In Bellator. And we saw Ivanov taking out LeVar Johnson, who is also on there's a third seat waiting next to Big Nog and Mighty Mo. LeVar may be occupying that momentarily. I thought LeVar's entertaining as hell, but he's seen brighter days. He got laid out, first round submission loss. He got ragdolled, submitted rather easily. And, I think that pushes his Bellator record to 1-2. So he's already, he has to step it up, unfortunately. And he's, I believe, 36-7, something like that. It's not looking good for LeVar. And hopefully it goes off on a high note. Unfortunately, the Bellator heavyweight tournament wasn't it. But he's a good fighter, and I just think that his better days are behind him. So I think he should join Mighty Mo Big Nog in the heavyweight retiree section. Also, with Bellator 116, you saw Karo Parisian. That's not a name you see every day. Karo Parisian returned with a dramatic comeback TKO. His first ever. The guy's been fighting for like 20 years. Sarcastically, he's been fighting for like 10 years, actually. And he finally registered. He never even had a ground and pound stoppage before that. No TKOs, like nothing, no knockouts. He registered his first one in Bellator and in his MMA career. It was a very dramatic win. And good for Karo. I was always a fan of his, regardless of his up and down roller coaster in the UFC. Good for him. I actually, not gonna lie to you, if he loses his next fight, I probably do want to see him retire. He's young. He's actually only about 32, 33. And, in the fight game, he's, like I said, he's been fighting 10 years. He's like probably in his 40s, 50s in fighting age. So good for him in any case. It was cool to see Karo, blast from the past, take his win. And 116 was a fun card. Bellator is making it happen. They have an event this weekend. 117's coming up. We have Douglas Lima against Rick Hahn, which should be a really good fight. Lima doesn't have to worry about Ben Askren anymore, who is, as we all know, the blanket of MMA. Nothing against Ben Askren, but he's not the most entertaining fighter, but he's definitely top 10 welterweight in my opinion. And He's no longer in Bellator, so they don't have to worry. He's in 1FC. So Bellator doesn't have to worry about it. Douglas Lima doesn't have to worry about it. I think Douglas Lima is going to score another highlight reel knockout. He's a brutal striker. Actually, I would like to see him fight in the UFC. I think he'd put a lot of welterweights to sleep in UFC. He's a very talented Brazilian. I hope he takes the win. It should be a great fight against him, Rickon. I'm calling a knockout by Douglas Lima, though. So that was our show. We got some more Bellator events. We got some more UFC events coming up. Like I said, Glover Teixeira, John Jones is coming up. That should be an awesome fight card at UFC 172. John Jones, Glover Teixeira. I think Jones will take a unanimous decision. A very hard-fought victory for Jones because Glover is no joke. What else do we got? We have Junior Dos Santos, Stipe Miocic. There's a bunch of fights coming up, but John Jones Teixeira should be really, really good. And hopefully Fight Pass, I'm still 2 months in, I sound like a broken record, gets better. Bellator has been awesome, so kudos to them. Can't wait for their future events. And also, this one's pretty big. Like I was mentioning at the beginning of the show, New York MMA is not legal. However, you can do an amateur MMA. And that is where this will be awesome. Let me tell you guys, you get to hear it. It's going to be very cool because I will be there and it should be awesome. We have Victory Combat Sports and it's April 25th, so it's next week. We have it's supposed to be an awesome event in terms of MMA, amateur MMA. There's going to be all kinds of, I heard it was described to me as a bit of a carnival. Should be fun. There's going to be all kinds of events. The mixer will be there, at least at the weigh-ins. Hopefully I'll try to make the event itself. But in any case, there's going to be a lot of action, a lot of people being there. Hopefully there's some UFC representatives possibly. Should be very, very fun. It's going to be April 25th. It's 69th Regiment and Armory, and that's address 6811 Lexington Avenue. 6811 Lexington Avenue. Apparently, I'm so excited. That's how excited. If I was Joe Rogan, if Joe Rogan was here, I would do the same. He would do the same thing. So, But in any case, I'm very excited for this because MMA in New York doesn't really go hand in hand anymore. Well, at all because it's not legal. But amateur MMA is awesome, and I can't wait for that, and I'll settle for that. Victory Combat Sports is going to be awesome. Please go if you're in the New York area and you're an MMA fan. If you're in the East Coast, if you're out of state, check it out. There's some great up-and-coming fighters that you'll probably see gracing Bellator and UFC cards in the future. A lot of promising stars coming up. Like I said, 68 Lexington Avenue here in the city. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait. You'll see some videos of me being there, at least the weigh-ins. That's a definite. We'll see some good stuff. The mixer will be there. We'll have all kinds of awesome people there. It's going to be great. You should check it out. I will check it out. Stay tuned. Like I said, Victory Combat Sports, Vegas Fuel, Steven Dumeng, camera, viewers, YouTube.com. We're awesome. Thank you so much for tuning in. You guys have been great. Don't hesitate to leave comments, concerns, qualms, whatever you guys want. UFC, Bellator, MMA, Legacy, 1FC. We got all kinds of awesome MMA coming up. It's dope. I'm very excited to be a part of it. You will see me very soon for episode 5 and Victory Combat Sports very soon. So stay tuned. Thank you so much for watching The Mixer with Steven Dumeng. Cheers, guys.